All right, I went on a diet and here's what happened. So, I'm Tiffany North. I am a coach who helps people heal their relationship with food and body. And I recently wrote a book called Enough: Heal Your Relationship with Food and Your Body Using Attachment Theory. And I am weight neutral, so I don't encourage people to lose weight. I don't support people in attempting to lose weight. I divested from diet culture like about 7 years ago and haven't dieted. I haven't been dieting since then. And I had to go on a temporary restrictive diet for some labs that I needed to get done. And I didn't really want to do it, but I definitely wanted the lab to be accurate. So this diet didn't restrict calories. It wasn't an attempt to lose weight, but it did restrict like significant categories of food and foods that I eat a lot. I eat all foods. So it was challenging. I wanted to talk a little bit about my experience because of, being somebody who is securely attached with myself, with food, my body, and being somebody that understands like the harm that diets can do. And this diet was like, I think ended up being about a week. Like I started it and then I didn't have everything I needed in terms of supplements, and then I had to pause it, and then I came back and did like another, 6 days or something. Knowing that diets don't work and understanding the harm that they can cause. So going into this eyes wide open, it was really an interesting experience. It definitely did increase my preoccupation and anxiety. It made it difficult to know what I could eat. It made it difficult to access food. I had to do a lot of shopping and food prep. And then if for some reason I didn't have access to those meals, or a meal didn't work out. Like for example, I tried to cook a whole chicken in an Instant Pot, which I used to do, but I did not do it right. So I had to throw the whole chicken out, and it was really sad. And then I didn't know what to eat. Like I didn't really have what I needed, versus typically it's like if my plan for a meal doesn't work out, or I don't feel like cooking it or whatever, I can just pivot and easily get something else out of the fridge or the pantry, right? So yeah, increased my preoccupation, made it difficult to find food. Again, this wasn't a restriction in terms of calories or trying to create a deficit. So I could eat as much as I wanted, and I could eat, as frequently as I wanted, but I still felt hungry a lot of the time. I definitely was thinking about food a lot. I even so my doctor gave me a list of foods, but then I looked up even more foods that might impact this test. So I think I self-restricted beyond the initial request. And that is really interesting to me because it's I'm trying to adhere rigidly to these rules, right? And we know that when we have insecure attachment, and in particular preoccupation or anxiety, we tend to seek structure to try to feel safe, and things are well controlled and I can relax, I can be safe. It didn't help me relax or feel safe. And I just kept trying to make sure I was doing it right, checking these boxes, even though that's not my philosophy when I'm eating how I always eat. It also did increase my preoccupation about my body a little bit. Do I feel better? Is this, is my size changing? Even though I don't attempt to lose weight and I'm okay, I have accepted that this is my size, and my size changes, and I never try to control, contort, force my body, shrink my body into any particular size or weight. It still increased, is this impacting my size? I don't think it did, but I don't weigh myself, so it may have on a minor level. And it actually didn't make me feel better physically. I do think that the increased veggies were good for me. I, had just kind of more consistency in my bowel movements, and I appreciated that. But I still had other symptoms that I have chronically. Those didn't go away. I actually was sleeping worse because I was having so much preoccupation about, food and about this testing. And I was concerned at times about whether this was going to create issues for me. So it was really interesting. It was very meta, preoccupation about the preoccupation. Yeah. So even though this was purely a short-term thing and it was meant to make it so that this lab result would be accurate, it definitely brought back a lot of those old feelings of anxiety and preoccupation. And I did not like that. And in fact, as soon as I was done with the lab test and I could eat whatever I wanted, I actually had leftovers from, food I had already prepped. So I ate that for the most part. I did, I think, end up having a couple of cookies that day, which were not allowed, in case you're curious. And yet I didn't feel the need to go out and have this rebound effect. It was I just want to go back to the easefulness. And I did. It felt like I could exhale and I just didn't have to worry about it. Yeah, last night I went out and had some sushi and it was great. One of the things I really really didn't like about that week was anytime I had plans to go out to dinner or lunch or something, I had to look up the menu in advance. I had to suggest places that had food that would work on this quote unquote diet. And it was really disruptive to my social life, my social plans. And that was really annoying to me. And I remember that from the past. Like, I would bring food, or I would just suggest getting like tea so that I didn't have to have anything with any sort of substance in it. I was so worried about the ingredients and things. So yeah, very interesting lesson for me around like that. Even if you know better, and even if you're not doing this for dieting purposes or, weight loss, it still definitely does increase preoccupation when you restrict food on that level. Won't be doing that again anytime soon. Hopefully the lab test worked. I had to mail it in. So I'm hopefully that they accept my sample and I don't have to, submit another one or something. But yeah, I'm glad for the experience. I really don't have the energy to put into hyper focusing on food anymore. I have long COVID and I just need that part of my life to be easeful. So I'm really grateful that I've been able to divest from diet culture and stay free of my eating disorder and really develop this secure attachment with myself. So I no longer feel that my value and worth is tied to any of that, whether I do the diet right or I don't do it, or what I'm eating, or whether my size changes. That really did help in this process of this is just a temporary thing to get this outcome. And I wasn't having any of the shame or negative self-talk that I would normally have that comes along with that. So this was sort of diet light in terms of the impact on my psyche. And again, it wasn't restrictive in terms of you can't eat enough, something like that. I have done some other short-term things, I've had to get a colonoscopy and, you can't eat for, 24 hours before, and you have to drink all this stuff. And that felt a little different than this because it was so short-term and because, I knew I was going to be really hungry and there wasn't a lot of prep involved other than the kind of prep that keeps you on the toilet all night. There wasn't a lot of, it's purchase these 3 things that you can eat or whatever. And that felt more okay, how do I care for myself through this thing versus ooh, I have to do this restriction for a while, which felt, much closer to home in terms of my past eating disorder or disordered eating, dieting experiences. So I hope this is informative in terms of understanding how restriction does impact people. And I also just want to say it's one thing if you're restricting because, you're trying to diet or something like that. This is very much fits into the sort of secure attached, insecure attached model and how we can just work to become more securely attached with ourselves versus someone who, maybe has celiac, for example, and can't have gluten, or someone who's actually experiencing food scarcity. It's likely going to increase preoccupation, anxiety, and be challenging to navigate. And there's going to be grief around that. There's no amount of inner work that we can do to just simply become securely attached if we're not actually having food, right? You can do inner work, but we need to have access to foods and enough food. And so if you're in that situation, I'm so sorry. That is a terrible byproduct of our systems of inequality. I would say if you're in that situation, focus on access, and then we can, work on the kind of secure attachment or helping your body feel safe again. All right. If you have questions or comments, I'd love to hear them. What's your experience been when you've done short-term diets or your past experience with dieting and that anxiety and preoccupation that comes up? I'm so glad it was temporary and that I can just kind of go about my day and eat what I, whatever at this point. And yeah, I'm going to go have some soup and salad because that's what's still in the fridge from this restrictive diet. But later I'm going to a fancy Pan Asian restaurant and I'm just going to eat whatever I feel like eating. And that makes me so happy. Be sure to subscribe if you want more information about becoming securely attached with food, your body, and yourself.